Pakistan's army chief praises Egypt's role in promoting regional stability and advancing peace in Gaza. The Fatah movement affirms the Palestine Liberation Organization remains the guarantors of a unified national vision. And Egypt sets up logistics hub to coordinate and sustain humanitarian aid deliveries to Gaza.
كل الشكر لمصر العظيمة، مصر الشعب المصري العظيم الذي نحبه من أعماق قلوبنا نحن كفلسطينيين.
تقدير الكبير لدور مصر في منع أخطر مؤامرة كانت تجري، وهي التطهير العرقي والتهجير للشعب الفلسطيني.
موقف مصر الذي منع التهجير، موقف مصر الذي ساند القضية على مدار عشرات السنوات الماضية.
بات من الضروري والملح الآن التحرك وطنيا وفلسطينيا وبدعم من الشقيقة مصر من أجل بلسمة جراح شعبنا.
لا يفوتني في هذه اللحظة أن أشكر إخواننا في مصر على الجهود الكبيرة التي بذلت.
ما كنا نسعى إليه على امتداد الشهور الماضية بمساهمة نشطة من قبل إخوتنا في جمهورية مصر العربية كان يهدف إلى إقرار وإحلال وقف إطلاق النار.
لطالما احتضنت القاهرة اللقاءات الوطنية بشكل دائم.
The news in detail. Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi received Pakistan's Army Chief General Qasem Munir at Al-Ittihadiyya, where Munir praised Egypt's pivotal regional role and Gaza efforts as both sides vowed deeper cooperation on stability, counter-terrorism and development. At Al-Ittihadiyya Palace, President Sisi highlighted the growing momentum in Egyptian-Pakistani ties and Egypt's commitment to deepen cooperation for mutual development. General Qasem Munir conveyed Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's greetings and lauded Egypt's leadership at the Sharm el-Sheikh Peace Summit and its push to end Gaza's humanitarian catastrophe. The talks covered regional stability, counter-terrorism coordination and mechanisms to face shared challenges alongside plans to broaden political security and economic collaboration. Both sides underscored continued alignment on de-escalation efforts and humanitarian access in Gaza, with Cairo's mediation and relief operations cited as central to easing civilian suffering and advancing a durable calm. During their meeting in Cairo, the Palestinian factions have agreed to fully implement the Gaza ceasefire and lift the blockade entirely, pledging to transfer administration to an independent technocratic committee and to coordinate next steps with mediators. With Egyptian, Qatari and Turkish mediation, the factions endorsed the second phase of President Trump's plan, committing to full ceasefire compliance and the complete lifting of the Gaza blockade. The final communique backs reconstruction and the withdrawal of Israeli forces and an international monitoring and funding mechanism to oversee delivery and projects. The group pledged national unity under the Palestine Liberation Organization and condemned Israeli annexation moves in the West Bank. They further expressed appreciation for Egypt's pivotal role and President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's support, saying coordination with partners will continue to translate commitment into timelines and implementation. The Fatah movement has affirmed that the statements issued by several Palestinian factions yesterday underscore that the true guarantor of any unified Palestinian vision is the Palestine Liberation Organization and the State of Palestine. The movement stressed that unilateral policies or attempts to bypass national legitimacy will not succeed. Fatah emphasized the need to establish a professional administrative committee composed of qualified experts to manage Gaza's affairs temporarily under the authority of the Palestinian government. It reiterated that security in Gaza is the responsibility of official Palestinian security forces and any international presence should remain at the borders. The movement also called for a unified authority, weapon and law under a national framework. Egypt has established an integrated network of logistics centers to receive, store and package humanitarian aid bound for Gaza, with 7 major hubs preparing and dispatching convoys under a plan to keep assistance flowing safely and continuously. Cairo says the new logistics network is designed to streamline the full aid cycle from intake and warehousing to packaging and lead out before convoys move to Gaza. 7 primary hubs are now dedicated to preparing and directing shipments under a centralized plan that prioritizes safely, steady throughout and predictable scheduling. Officials say the system standardizes receipt and packing process to reduce delays, maintain cold chain and critical care supplies, and support sustained convoy operations. The approach is intended to stabilize flows over time and ensure aid reaches medical facilities and communities as needs persist. That comes as 2,062 aid trucks have entered the Gaza Strip from October 18th till October 23rd. The World Health Organization moved 238 pallets of medical supplies into Gaza through Kerem Abu Salem, delivering insulin, cholera kits, assistive devices and other essential medicines as part of an expanded emergency push. The WHO says the convoy through Kerem Shalom carried infection prevention control equipment, medical consumables and assistive devices alongside critical drugs like insulin. Health Emergency Chief Dario Bertetto said the shipment is aimed at sustaining outstretched facilities amid persistent shortages. The agency adds it has more than 2,000 additional pallets staged for dispatch via Jordan, Egypt, Dubai, the West Bank and Jerusalem, pending clearances and secure access. The aid delivery is part of a wider effort to stabilize primary care and hospital services, manage outbreaks and support chronic patients who have struggled to access treatment. The WHO says further movements are ready once corridors and logistics align. For more analysis, we now move to our dear colleague Narana Al-Qassas in our newsroom. To you, Rana.
Thank you so much, Mona. And for further analysis, we're joined from Cairo by the consultant at Egypt's Command and Staff College, Major General Osama Mahmoud Kabir. Welcome to Qnews, sir. It's a pleasure to have you with us in this very special segment. What does the Pakistani Army Chief's praise signal about Egypt-Pakistan alignment, and how can that translate into joint diplomacy at the United Nations and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation?
Good evening, first. So let's talk about the Pakistani-Egyptian diplomatic relations. It's pretty much strong since more than 50 years. However, in the last couple of years and after the scourge that Gaza Strip led by the brutal war waged by the Israeli army, If you can see that we here in Egypt held that summit on March 2025. This summit actually was about how to reconstruct Gaza and stop the ending war, as well as the fast or the quick healing. This summit actually then also transformed to the Organization of Islamic Countries, where Pakistan lies there. So after that, we can see that Pakistan also had took place within the 7 countries in the New York activities with Donald Trump, President of the United States of America. And of course, that will all like to be conducted in a great coordination and cooperation in between the Egyptian authorities here. So what's happening now is that when we find that Mr. Field Marshal Aschu is visiting Egypt with within a delegation of the big VIP members of the Pakistani armed forces, and as well as the ambassador here in Cairo, that's a new trend now. That's sort of evolving the relations in between Pakistan and Egypt, specifically after what happened something like a couple of months ago, when the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia actually had signed that agreement to form an alliance with the Pakistan, with the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. So now that's a new change, new trend. Actually, it's pretty much favorable now. It's well needed in the meantime due to the consequences took place after the war in Gaza Strip. So they are praising the Egyptian role play that took actually 2 axes that Egypt played, the diplomatic and political role within the last couple of years to solve this complicated problem took place between the two counterparts, Palestinians and Israelis, as well as they are praising the Egyptian humanitarian aids to the Gaza Strip, which always had a scale of more than 18% now from all have been provided by the whole war to the Gaza Strip, and that was proved and authenticated in the United Nations papers.
Most important, sir, that you see that the relations between Egypt and Pakistan are solid and of good relation. And if the Palestine Liberation Organization, sir, is affirmed as the grantor of national legitimacy, how should roles be divided between the PLO, the Palestinian government, and the temporary technocrat team to avoid rival power centers, sir?
Yes. You know what? When we could get that agreement in between Hamas and Fatah in September 2024, what to be so-called the cooperative, supportive technocrat committee, it was supposed to be consisting of 15 members that would belong to the Palestinian Liberation Organization or to the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. However, what's new now? What happened yesterday after all the factions, the political factions of Palestine within Gaza and more even West Bank? They came up with a good conclusion now. We have signed that, we ratified that, and they said, yes, we need to go through a technocrat committee, but it's from Gaza Strip this time. However, what I understand from between the lines of this agreement yesterday, or this announcement actually, then on media yesterday, that this technocrat committee, yes, it's from Gaza Strip, but it's a temporary time. And they will be like
sorry, sir, it's temporarily, you said?
Yes, that's what we know. It's a technocrat for a temporary period of time. It's not permanent. Yeah, that was what propagated, actually, published on the media yesterday.
But still, sir, from your point of view and your narrative, don't you see that this is constructive and this is a good beginning?
It is, pretty much. Yes, why not? Yeah, and both sides actually they approved on that because we understand like within the very, very near future, actually, the whole thing will be in the hand of the Palestinian Authority in West Bank. Yeah, and finally, because this time it's true because I understand that Hamas have reached the line that they understand they cannot go only, they will go actually alone by this time. We need to unify with the West Bank and the Palestinian Authority in West Bank. So this temporary committee to run the Gaza Strip with the issues within a very temporary period of time, it will be changed like for a permanent time, but I would say it's not from Hamas, not from Gaza Strip at least.
Okay, sir, an international monitoring and funding mechanism is being discussed. What design, membership, mandate and transparency would key actors accept while preserving Palestinian Authority and preventing external overreach rather?
For the international monitoring and the funding mechanisms, yes, it's discussed. But what are the guarantees here? I would say, from my perception, we need the European Union to be in this issue. We need the GCC, the Gulf Countries Council, and of course, we need the United States of America, because the funding now is for the, I wouldn't say it's reconstructing Gaza, I would say it's for the resurrection of Gaza. Gaza has been almost wiped out. So what we need now, this big number of money will be actually pushed in the Gaza Strip. We need the guarantors to be from the European Union, from the United States, and from the GCC, and of course, like Egypt, we have in here, in because we run all this. So if we could get to this phase, if we could get to this point now, start reconstructing Gaza, we need first of all to solve that problem, which has been actually, orchestrated or circulated in Israeli media. They would say construction activities will take place only on the scales that the IDF is there. Now, for instance, if we start now, they would say construction should be from beyond the yellow line and to the southern. So this is of course not accepted actually by the Arabs and by Egypt. So these are one of the big issues we are discussing now, and we need to put the United States in it, because we need a final resolution about that.
Of course, because the United States is overseeing, sir, and it's the main grantor of all this that's taking place.
It is the main and the only grantor to impose leverage in Israel.
Egypt
However,
has built
yes.
Sorry, sir.
Yes, please. Yes.
Egypt has built a network of logistics hubs for Gaza aid. Beyond relief, how can this infrastructure strengthen Egypt's diplomatic leverage and help lock timelines for lifting restrictions, reconstruction, and sustained calm, sir?
I mean, I could understand that. Will you repeat it a little bit? Because
you want me to repeat the question?
Yes, if you don't mind.
Okay, sir. Egypt has built a network of logistic hubs for the Gaza aid.
Yes.
Beyond relief, sir, how can this infrastructure strengthen Egypt's diplomatic leverage and help lock timelines for lifting restrictions, reconstruction, and sustained calm to remain calm in the, of course, Gaza Strip?
You know what Egypt did actually through the last couple of years since that started. Yes, we built up these 8 points within the Gaza, and we put some camps too, and we pushed our elements and members on that. First of all, that would show the Egyptian fundamental, very important and essential role play that's taking place the whole time in order to come up with a good resolution for such perplexing situation that took place in the last couple of years. Secondly, it could be like stand-off point that from it we can launch much more even forward to the more construction activities. You can use them as threshold, I would say, like a little step to move forward. So diplomatically, Egypt could impose its leverage to specifically after the summit of Sharm el-Sheikh on 13th of this October. Diplomatically, we can impose our leverage in a very good channel boost with the officials from the European Union and the States of America, and with the help from the Arab countries and countries also like Pakistan and Indonesia. All these now are embedded and involved in this issue, and we would see. I mean, it's not hard now to get a good assessment about that, but as you understand, because we have some violations from the Israeli side, and we have, like the day-to-day, we have different issues taking place. However, I think it's going now in a positive way, and maybe in less than a couple of weeks, all these things will be clarified to the public.
By this note, sir, did you see that Egypt is on the front line, and you ended with a positive note? That was Major General Osama Mahmoud Kabir from Cairo, the consultant at Egypt's Command and Staff College. Thank you very much for your time and informative knowledge and analysis, and for joining us on Qnews. Thank you very much. And now we go back to my dear colleague Mona Salhi in our studios. Mona.
Thank you so much, Rana, for the analysis. Back to our bulletin. Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati and Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan discussed Sharm el-Sheikh summit outcomes and the Gaza ceasefire, urging full implementation and unhindered aid, and agreed to deepen Egypt-Turkey cooperation ahead of November's Cairo Reconstruction Conference. In a phone call, both foreign ministers reviewed the Sharm el-Sheikh Peace Summit outcomes and the Gaza ceasefire agreement, stressing strict implementation and sustained humanitarian access. They further discussed Turkey's participation in November's Cairo Conference on Gaza reconstruction and recovery and agreed to build on positive momentum in bilateral ties. Both sides highlighted plans to expand cooperation across political, economic and investment fields and exchange views on regional developments of mutual concerns. The ministers said coordination will continue in the run-up to the Cairo meeting to align priorities for reconstruction relief and longer-term stability. Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdullah spoke with the Dutch Foreign Minister on Gaza and regional stability, reviewing Sharm el-Sheikh summit outcomes as The Hague praised Egypt's pivotal role in brokering the Gaza ceasefire under President Trump's initiative and aligning for November's Cairo conference. In the call, Abdullah and his Dutch counterpart reviewed the Sharm el-Sheikh Peace Summit outcomes and recent steps to sustain the Gaza ceasefire. The Dutch side praised Egypt's leadership in securing the deal under President Trump's initiative. Abdullah stressed full adherence to the agreement and unhindered humanitarian access as foundations for lasting calm. Both ministers discussed preparations for November's Cairo Reconstruction Conference, underscoring coordinated international support for recovery, relief, and essential services in Gaza. They agreed to maintain close consultation in the lead up to the conference and to deepen cooperation on regional stability and humanitarian priorities. Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdullah met Romania's Foreign Minister on the sidelines of the EU-Egypt summit in Brussels and stressed full implementation of the Sharm el-Sheikh ceasefire, and as well as they discussed Gaza and preparations for the Cairo Reconstruction Conference. During their Brussels meeting, Abdullah underscored that fully honouring the Sharm el-Sheikh ceasefire is essential to stabilise Gaza and enable sustained aid. The Romanian Foreign Minister praised Egypt's pivotal regional role and reaffirmed support for joint stability efforts. Both sides reviewed preparations for the Cairo Reconstruction Conference and agreed to deepen coordination on humanitarian priorities. They also committed to strengthening bilateral cooperation across trade, investment, education and culture, with Abdullah expressing Cairo's aim to elevate ties to a comprehensive partnership. Officials said follow-up consultations will continue around conference timelines, sectoral projects, and mechanisms to turn pledges into implementable programs. Gaza-based health authorities have announced that the death toll from Israeli attacks on the Gaza Strip has climbed to over 68,500 and other 170,300 wounded. The Gaza Ministry of Health has reported that hospitals in the Gaza Strip have received 19 dead and 7 others injured in the past 24 hours. Coming up next in our news bulletin for this hour, firefighters in Kiev put out a warehouse blaze after Russian strikes killed at least 3 people across Ukraine. At a London press conference with the coalition of the willing, Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky said diplomacy matters only when it can lead to real decisions. Thanked partners for new sanctions on Russia. Zelensky used the London forum to push for deeper pressure on Moscow and expanded strike capability, arguing that long-range weapons are essential to force meaningful talks. He welcomed fresh sanctions steps and called for broader measures on Russian oil and assets, alongside accelerated air defense support. The Ukrainian leader said real leverage sanctions, long-range capabilities, political pressure and accountability must underpin any diplomacy with the Kremlin. Allies signaled openness to additional missile support and tighter economic pressure, with further proposals expected in the coming days. Zelensky added that the more losses Russia suffers at home, the faster Moscow will agree to substantive negotiations.
What happens on the front line of Donetsk today is shaping our collective future for years to come.
European leaders and NATO chief vowed tougher sanctions on Russia and faster delivery of long-range strike and air defense systems to Ukraine after a coalition of the willing meeting in London, with the UK announcing thousands of additional missiles. At a joint London briefing, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof, Denmark's Mette Frederiksen, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, and President Vladimir Zelensky pledged to step up sanctions and speed weapons to Kiev. The coalition said it will work to phase Russian oil and gas out of the global markets and channel frozen Russian assets into Ukraine's reconstruction. Starmer said Britain has fully sanctioned Russian hydrocarbons and will provide more than 5,000 lightweight multi-role missiles, with 140 delivered ahead of schedule. Leaders also flagged accelerated air defense deliveries and long-range capability, framing pressure on Moscow as essential to deter further strikes and force meaningful talks. Ukrainian firefighters extinguished a blaze at a food warehouse in Kiev after overnight Russian missile airstrikes across Ukraine that left at least 3 people dead, according to local authorities. Authorities said Russia launched missiles and drones overnight, igniting a major fire at a Kiev warehouse and causing casualties in several regions. Kiev officials reported fatalities and multiple injuries in the capital after a pre-dawn blast emergency crews contained the blaze and cleared debris nationwide. At least 3 people were killed and more than a dozen wounded, with damage to civilian facilities under review. The attacks come as Ukraine urges allies for additional air defense systems ahead of winter and continues repairs to critical infrastructure, investigation into impact sites and unexploded ordnance are underway, with further updates expected from the local administration. That brings us to the end of our news bulletin. But before we wrap up, here is a recap of the top stories making headlines of this hour. Pakistan's army chief praises Egypt's role in promoting regional stability and advancing peace in Gaza. The Fatah movement affirms the Palestinian Liberation Organization remains the guarantor of a unified national vision. And Egypt sets up logistics hub to coordinate and sustain humanitarian aid deliveries to Gaza. For more stories and live updates, follow Qnews on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at Qnews EGY. From all of us here, thank you for watching and stay tuned for more updates and news on Qnews.